Parliament is back with a government facing scrutiny at home and abroad. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
They're back. For the first time since the middle of December, MPs are back in the House of Commons. And they return with much to discuss. There's the Trump administration and new threats of even higher tariffs. There's Prime Minister Carney's trip to China and an agreement on EVs in exchange for tariff relief on Canadian products. There's speculation about more floor crossings to the Liberals and even rumors that the Liberals might call a snap election. Prime Minister Carney is getting the week going with an announcement about what the Liberals are calling a suite of measures about affordability. One of them is an increase in the quarterly GST rebate. They're calling it a groceries and essentials rebate. That's something groups like Food Banks Canada has been calling for to help ease cost of living pressures for low-income Canadians. Liberals say a single individual, if they qualify for this, would get an extra $130 a year, more with a special one-time top-up. At an event today at a grocery store in the Ottawa area, Prime Minister Carney said it's about giving needy families a boost.
Everyone pays the same GST on items that they buy, no matter how much money they make. But since groceries and other essentials make up a larger share of the budget of lower-income Canadians, the GST puts a higher burden on those less well off. The GST credit has helped to make our tax system fairer by returning a portion of the federal sales tax to Canadians with lower incomes, providing relief for people who feel the extra cost at the checkout most acutely.
The Prime Minister was also asked today for his reaction to what President Trump said on social media over the weekend. Trump threatened Canada with a 100% tariff if Canada goes ahead with a trade deal with China. In his social media postings, Trump also called Prime Minister Carney governor. That's something he hasn't called Prime Minister Carney before. Trump used to say that about Justin Trudeau all the time. When asked for his reaction, Prime Minister Carney mostly shrugged it off.
I mean, I think in this role, you get called a lot of things, a lot of time, and I'm not going to comment on every tweet or truth or comment from whoever. So I can handle it.
Speaking on ABC News this week, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent echoed the U.S. president's warning that the Trump administration doesn't want Canada becoming a drop-off point for Chinese goods.
We can't let Canada become an opening that the Chinese pour their cheap goods into the U.S. We have a USMCA agreement, but based on that, which is going to be renegotiated this summer, and I'm not sure what Prime Minister Carney is doing here, other than trying to virtue signal to his globalist friends at Davos. I don't think he's doing the best job for the Canadian people.
Bessent would go on to say that the 100% tariffs would only be applied if Canada and China came to a free trade agreement. That's something Prime Minister Carney ruled out just yesterday.
Canada respects our engagements, our commitments. Il y a des engagements dans l'ACM. We have commitments under CUSMA that not to pursue free trade agreements with non-market economies without prior notification. We have no intention of doing that with China or any other non-market economy. What we've done with China is to rectify some issues that developed in the last couple of years. In many respects, we're going, to use the expression, back to the future with respect to EVs, with respect to agriculture, with respect to fish products and other food products, but with additional protections.
This will also be a big week for the official opposition Conservatives. Conservative Party delegates will start arriving in Calgary later this week to vote on the future of the party's leader, Pierre Poilievre. He will make a speech at that convention on Friday. On social media, Poilievre has been striking a more cooperative tone with the Liberals lately. while insisting the Conservatives want to see action.
Grand announcements, new government agencies, signing ceremonies, red carpets, and stacking new laws and bureaucracies on top of old ones will do nothing. There's no magic to this. What we need is for the Carney government to get out of the way and approve these privately funded projects. Mr. Carney told the crowd in Davos that, quote, a country that cannot feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. So why can't we?
As for the Bloc Québécois, they're fresh off a major convention in Quebec City with their provincial cousins, the Parti Québécois, predicting a third sovereignty referendum after the Quebec provincial election later this year. And the Bloc leader, Yves-François Blanchet, is warning that Prime Minister Carney's pride might be putting Quebec and Canada at risk.
I'm not a friend of Donald Trump. I despise a lot of things that they do. I am, as a human being, shocked by what I see in Minneapolis those days. But a statesperson has to take into account the impact of what he says or does on the welfare of the citizens of the country. And I'm not certain that it's been taken into consideration as much as it should, and I suspect that the pride of the Prime Minister has taken the best of himself.
Following today's announcement in Ottawa, the Prime Minister left for Toronto for a meeting with Ontario Premier Doug Ford. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
That's the sound of a wild scene at a Minneapolis hotel last night where protesters tried to break in believing it was housing ICE agents. That unfolded one day after Alex Preddy, a 37-year-old nurse and protester in Minneapolis, was shot and killed by ICE agents on Saturday. His death is the second fatal shooting by ICE agents in that city in just a few weeks' time. Renee Good was shot and killed on January 7th. Officials with the Trump administration see this latest shooting one way. State and local officials see it totally another way. And many residents in Minneapolis say the videos of the encounter don't match up with what the Trump administration is claiming. Alex Preddy had a handgun for which he had a concealed carry permit. ICE agents and Trump officials claim Preddy was threatening them with a firearm, and they acted in self-defense. Border Patrol official Gregory Bovino told CNN ICE agents are the victims in this latest shooting.
Every situation is different. What our officers are faced with here in Minneapolis are chaotic, very difficult and violent situations in which individuals, and this suspect is not the only one to bring a loaded weapon to a riot. The situations are chaotic and ever-changing. Follow directions for law enforcement. Don't inject yourself knowingly beforehand into a law enforcement situation.
With respect, it feels as though in some ways you're blaming the victim here.
The victims are the Border Patrol agents. I'm not blaming the Border Patrol agents. The victim are the Border Patrol agents. The suspect put himself in that situation. The victims are the Border Patrol agents there.
That's been the line of ICE and the Trump administration since the moment this happened. A top advisor to Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, called Preddy a would-be assassin and a domestic terrorist. The director of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, called Preddy an armed suspect who reacted violently when approached by law enforcement.
Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines with ammunition in them that held dozens of rounds. He also had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement.
State and local officials don't buy the Trump administration's version of events. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz again called on President Trump to pull ICE agents from the state.
To Americans who are watching this right now, and I don't know, maybe you're watching it with curiosity, bewilderment, horror, scorn, or sympathy. I've got a question for all of you. What side do you want to be on? The side of an all-powerful federal government that can kill, injure, menace, and kidnap its citizens off the streets? Or on the side of a nurse at the VA hospital who died bearing witness to such government? Or the side of a mother whose last words were, "I'm not mad at you"? You're allowed to decide at any point that you're not with this anymore. If you voted for this administration, heck, even if you thought Operation Metro Surge was a good idea, sounded like the thing to do a month ago, you're still allowed to look at what's happening here in Minnesota and say, this isn't what I voted for and this isn't what I want.
The mayor of Minneapolis is Jacob Fry. He also called for an end to the ICE action in his city.
I just saw a video of more than 6 masked agents pummeling one of our constituents and shooting him to death. How many more residents, how many more Americans need to die or get badly hurt for this operation to end? How many more lives need to be lost before this administration realizes that a political and partisan narrative is not as important as American values? How many times must local and national leaders must plead with you, Donald Trump, to end this operation and recognize that this is not creating safety in our city?
President Trump told the Wall Street Journal his administration will, quote, review everything about the shooting of Alex Preddy. While on Capitol Hill, Democrats are calling for ICE to be defunded, even if it means the whole U.S. government shuts down. This is Senator Adam Schiff of California.
Well, I'm not giving ICE or Border Patrol another dime, given how these agencies are operating. Democrats are not going to fund that. The government will shut down if Republicans insist that that be joined with other government funding. It will be a Republican decision. They understand we're not going to go along with this. And we hope some of the Republicans in the Senate may see those scenes in the streets and be as repelled as we are and vote against that continuation of violence also. But if they don't, it will be their decision whether they couple that funding for these ICE agents and Border Patrol agents with all these other government agencies. They will make the decision. They're in the majority if they want to shut down the government so they can perpetuate this violence. But I'm not going to be a part of it.
As for the status of any investigation, Minnesota authorities have obtained an emergency court order that bars federal officials from destroying or altering any evidence. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
And if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, great new mobile app that will help you hear our show. When you want to, listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R, and it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. You can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R. And Now You Know with Rob Snow is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It is a snow day in many parts of the country. The massive storm system that caused so much destruction across the United States has now moved into parts of Atlantic Canada. So there are snowfall warnings in effect for much of Nova Scotia today. Forecasters calling for between 20 to 30 centimeters of snow and strong winds. This is going to be an all-day thing, an all-day event. It won't taper off until sometime tomorrow. So as a result, many schools are closed, garbage and recycling collection being rescheduled. So for all the information on the impacts of the storm in Nova Scotia, I would suggest that you visit halifax.citynews.ca, halifax.citynews.ca for all the details there. In Toronto and across the GTA, I mean, it is likely going to be known as the storm of the year. Pearson Airport saw 46 centimeters of snow, while other parts of the GTA region saw as much as 60 centimeters. That led city officials in Toronto to declare a major snow event, make it easier to clear it all. The TTC, the public transit system in Toronto, issued many alerts about the impacts on public transit, and multiple school boards in the Toronto area and across the GTA have also called it a snow day. Similar story across Kitchener-Waterloo, which will get a few more centimeters today. Most schools are closed. And it is going to be bitterly cold for the rest of the week, with wind chills during the overnight hours in KW dropping down to close to minus 30. That massive weekend storm across the United States, which was named Winter Storm Fern, stretched more than 2,000 miles from Arkansas to New England. And it dumped 60 centimeters of snow on some cities like Boston. At one point on Sunday, more than 200 million Americans were under some sort of winter weather warning. Ice accumulation was a big issue. 800,000 customers across the U.S. without power, and many have been told they could be without power for days. The storm system being blamed for at least 11 deaths, and almost 20,000 flights were canceled. It was a big weekend in the National Football League. The contestants for the Super Bowl are set. The New England Patriots are back in the big game. They outlasted the Denver Broncos 10-7. The weather had an impact on that game. It turned into near whiteout conditions in the second half of the Denver Patriots game. The Patriots move on to the Super Bowl to meet the Seattle Seahawks. They beat the LA Rams 31-27. Super Bowl Sunday, February 8th, and the game in Santa Clara, California. And in curling at the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, the Einerson Rink from Manitoba is atop Pool A with a strong 3-0 record after the opening weekend. The Einerson Rink is actually the Team Canada rink at this event because the Holman Rink is getting ready for the Olympics. The Laws Rink, also from Manitoba, also 3-0. In Pool B, another Manitoba rink atop the standings, the Peterson Rink, 3-0. Manitoba having its way at the Scotties. The Christina Black Rink from Nova Scotia, standing with a record of 2-1. We'll be right back with our Newsday panel with Parliament back in action today. There's a lot to talk about. Coming right up on News Radio. It's time for our Monday Newsday political panel. I believe we have Matthew Dubé with us, Vice President, Proof Strategies, former NDP MP. How are you, Matthew?
I'm good, thanks, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm pleased that we could connect with you. Melanie Paradis is going to join us shortly, the president of Texture Communications and a former advisor to Aaron O'Toole. Lots to talk about. House of Commons back in session for the first time since mid-December. And the Liberals are talking about domestic issues to start the week. The Prime Minister made an announcement at a grocery store in Ottawa with affordability, the focus, Matthew. So the Liberals they're basically changing the name of the GST rebate or the GST credit. They're going to call it a grocery and essentials rebate. This is something that Food Banks Canada has been calling for. The original report suggested it's going to be $130 a year extra for a single individual who would normally qualify for the GST credit, but it's going to actually be significantly more than that, more than $900 for this year, because there's going to be a special one-time payment that will come in June, and the first increase in the new groceries and essentials rebate will roll out in July. What do you think of the news?
Well, with respect to the great folks at Food Banks Canada and all the extraordinary and unfortunate but important work that they've had to do, especially in the last number of years with food inflation, I just don't think that that's sufficient, right? It's whenever you're handing out checks or offering tax credits, things like that, as policy, it tends to be a bit of a Band-Aid for a bullet wound at the end of the day. I mean, anyone who's gone shopping for groceries knows that that won't last very long, especially for families. And the other issue is that it's something that it comes once. If you need it now, you're out of luck. If you need it after the fact, you're probably going to be out of luck because it's going to get spent pretty quickly, no matter how thrifty a family chooses to be. I think certainly appreciate the intention here, and it's one thing, but I do think there's broader systemic issues that the government needs to start addressing. I mean, I don't have the full laundry list here of policies that they need to implement, but there's definitely more that needs to be done. I do think it's insufficient, but the one good signal that it shows is that this issue is now firmly on the government's agenda. Whether or not they address it successfully is another question. And it's about high time. All the international stuff is critical. It's a big federal responsibility, but people are still struggling. And I think as Parliament returns, I do think the government's wary of the criticism they will face on that front.
Yeah, maybe I should just even fact check myself and clarify my own remarks here. I have said that the Food Banks Canada has been calling for a grocery and essentials rebate, but what it hadn't been calling for was, well, just take the GST rebate and rename it something else, a grocery and essentials rebate, which is essentially what they've done here, Matthew, although they're increasing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's political marketing. I chuckled to myself yesterday, not to be overly cynical, when I saw a headline that said, government launching grocery, what's the term they're using there? The grocery
rebate.
That's right. Correct. So, I mean, look, and that's not really what it is. It's just a, random, check that families will receive. And I don't want to downplay it, and I don't want to speak from a position of privilege. I appreciate that for some families that can be a make or break amount. And certainly, again, it's better than nothing. But I do think that when you're using that language and sort of implying that it's some kind of relief for groceries, I mean, the people have a multitude of pressures financially right now, right? And so obviously groceries exacerbate that, but depending on where someone is feeling the crunch, that money might be spent on something else. But then the government can sort of speak to the grocery issue, the announcement being done in a grocery store. But ultimately, it's just a government check, and I don't think it addresses, as I said, the broader systemic issues that are at play, that sort of, and I appreciate that some of it's outside of the government's control and goes beyond Canada's borders, but we know the problem's particularly acute here in this country. And so, but as I said, I think at minimum, it shows that it's on the agenda, and certainly that's better than nothing.
Okay. It's going to be for a single person, an extra, give or take, $18 a week. Again, if they qualify. Because there are a lot of people who don't qualify for the GST rebate, who make too much money to qualify for the GST rebate, but they have been struggling as well, so they won't get anything. But those who qualify, a single individual would get, an extra $18 a week. $18 a week to deal with the increased cost of living that people have experienced in just, the last 4 or 5 years. But this is leading some people, just the timing of it. I want to run this by you, okay? The one-time money will go into people's bank accounts, those who qualify, in June, and then the enhanced GST rebate will go into effect in July. That is leading some to think in Ottawa, the Liberals are preparing to call a snap election. Okay? All this money will go in. People will be grateful for the money. They'll vote Liberal. What do you think about that? Think there's anything to that? Are we going to the polls this year?
Well, that's a good question, Rob. I may be a little less cynical than you, only because I'm told by people far better with numbers and accounting than I am that July 1st tends to be a key date for taxes and things like that, right, with payroll and the like. And so I suspect that there's some internal, technical reasons why that's the timing that makes sense. So I'll give benefit of the doubt on that front. But to the broader question of when the election might be, I think there's a few things at play. I think, obviously, we might get a chance to chat about it. We'll see what happens with Pierre Poilievre later this week. But it'll be interesting to see if there's any more floor crossings once the dust settles on the Conservative internal process. Does that sort of give a de facto majority to the Prime Minister? That'll be an interesting thing to see and how that impacts their plans. But it's hard I suspect it's hard internally when you have all this turmoil. You know how much you could get done, or certainly how much more easily you could get it done with a majority. And the polls are looking good. I mean, the Liberals are ticking up ever so slightly. And we know that, Pierre Poilievre's unfavorability is fairly high. His negatives are high amongst Canadians. And that doesn't seem, ready to change anytime soon. And if he wins the leadership review or hangs on, as I suspect that he will, the temptation is going to be there for the Liberals. But I think it's hard to say. I think there's a few paths, a few forks in the road, if you will.
Okay. We'll be right back, and Melanie Paradis will join us from Texture Communications. Look forward to having her take on the events as they are already. It's our political panel on a Monday. With Parliament back in action, this is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Talking politics on a Monday. Parliament's back today after the winter break. Matthew Dubé is here, Vice President for Proof Strategies, and Melanie Paradis, President of Texture Communications. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Affordability, the theme for the day for the Liberals. What do you think about the announcement today? The grocery and essentials rebate, Melanie. What do you think of that?
Well, it was definitely a drop in the bucket. I mean, I have to think that there'll be other announcements that Carney will come out with in the coming weeks related to this, because affordability is one of the two most important issues that's dividing the electorate right now. So you've got those who affordability has been their top issue. Pierre Poilievre has largely been speaking to them. And then you've got the elbows up folks who have been more concerned about trade with the United States. That's their number one issue. Obviously, Carney has been speaking to that segment of the demographic. And so I think this affordability measure is really just to shore up his support amongst those who he's largely been ignoring, frankly, that Pierre Poilievre has been eating his lunch when it comes to the affordability narrative.
So first of a series, I mean, what more would you be expecting from the Liberals?
Well, I would hope that there would be economic measures. I mean, I think, one great example would be pass the Canadian Sovereignty Act that Pierre Poilievre is bringing forward on Tuesday. The Conservatives have an opposition day in the House. That means they get to bring forward a bill or a motion. And in this case, they've got the Canadian Sovereignty Act, which they've tried introducing previously. And this would bring, an end to the tanker ban. It would end Bill C-69, which is the anti-pipeline bill. It would help get rid of the plastics ban. There's a bunch of things that we really need in order to get our economy moving. We really need to eliminate, and that's what this bill will help to do. In addition to that, there have got to be some additional measures to help get money into people's pockets right now. Like you said in the previous segment, the measures that were announced today aren't actually going to be seen by Canadians until June or July. They're not going to feel any impact until then. That's a long way out. I'm looking out my window here in Ontario, where we've just been hammered by an awful lot of snow, and June or July feels a very long way away.
Very long way off.
Yeah. What are we going to do for Canadians who need help right now?
Okay. What do you think of this scenario? The money goes into the bank June, July, and in a snap election shortly thereafter. What do you think of that? It's speculation that's out there, Melanie.
Yeah, it is speculation that's out there, but I think that the Liberals are more likely to call an election if we see the elbows up attitude cycle back up again. That's where they have been performing really well. I think the affordability stuff is just something they're doing to cover their bases, frankly. I don't think this is actually a top priority.
Okay, that's interesting and a good segue. How do you expect the Liberals to react to these latest social media diatribes from President Trump then? Why don't we jump into that? Matthew, what do you think?
Well, listen, I mean, I think there's plenty of evidence now that whether you go and sort of, glad hand and try to get along with the man, or whether you make sort of some of the veiled criticisms or commentary that Prime Minister Carney did in the speech in Davos. I think either way, it's unpredictable. And so I think absent any predictability, I think you need to be focused on what else you can be doing while, the conversations go on with the U.S. at different levels, because at the end of the day, it's not just the president and the prime minister, as we all know, right? There's diplomats, there's ministers, there's a whole slew of staff and others who are involved in these conversations. And so undoubtedly that continues, and you kind of have to let the tantrums be exactly what they are. And I mean, it's kind of sad statement. It's a sad state of affairs, when when I reflect on dealing with my 6-year-old the same way the president of the United States. But ultimately, that's really where we're at now, is that if we're going to respond to every passive aggressive or aggressive post that's made on social media, we're not going to get anywhere. And so I do think the prime minister needs to pick a lane. He seems to kind of have gone back to the elbows up attitude, but you can't have it both ways. I think you need to decide what you're doing. Are you pursuing a détente, or are you going to be more critical and then look elsewhere for trade and economic activity?
Your 6-year-old calls you governor? No, I'm just...
It's almost a
because
badge of
that's
honor
happening
at
now.
this point.
He's calling Mark Carney governor, but how do you deal with that? Mr. Carney said, "Well, I get called lots of things. I'm not going to respond every time something goes out on Truth Social or something like that." What do you think, Melanie?
I mean, I think he's right not to respond every time. That's for sure. But look, there were some strategic missteps that have happened here in the past couple of weeks. Like, yes, Trump is, I would say, reliably unreliable. We have come to expect the unexpected from him. It's one of his negotiation tactics. He has spelled that out for everyone. But in this case, like, trip to China, I think, was fraught with peril for the Canadian relationship with the United States, because Trump has always been crystal clear on China. The U.S. national security policy is abundantly clear that the U.S. will not tolerate China having any influence in the Western Hemisphere. So can Canada sell our goods to China, our canola, our pork, et cetera? Like, yes, of course we need to continue to manage that relationship for that purpose. But China can't come to Canada and make investments. The Americans have been very clear about that. They do not want China to have access or influence over our market or our politics, as they have had for years.
Okay. When we come back, we will turn our attention to Calgary and the Conservative Party convention later this week and get some predictions from our panelists. The future of Mr. Poilievre. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Back talking politics to start the week with Melanie Paradis from Texture Communications and Matthew Dubé from Proof Strategies. All right, Melanie, walk me through what do you think is going to happen at this convention, this Conservative Party convention with Pierre Poilievre later in the week?
Honestly, I think it's going to be a total nothing burger, and I think it'll be business as usual next week. I think he's going to sail through, and there will be lots of hand-wringing on Friday about it, and then he'll turn out to be just fine. And then he'll be right back in the House where he performs exceptionally well, and he'll be advocating for affordability measures. And then he can start talking about his vision for Canada and what he plans to deliver for us to show Canadians that the Conservatives are a real option.
Okay. What could upset the apple cart, Melanie?
Look, there's been speculation about whether the Liberals will have another floor crosser this week. Yeah, whether they'll play some politics themselves to see if they can do something to disrupt the news cycles for Pierre, disrupt the momentum.
Right. Okay. North of 80 seems to be a popular number for support for him. Is that what you think he'll get? 80, north of 80% support?
I honestly, I think north of 70 is good. I think anywhere in the 70s is good. I don't think that we need to, have a barn burner number. The challenge is like getting people motivated to go to this leadership convention, and I'm not too concerned for him if it's in the 70s.
What do you think is going to happen? Melanie thinks it's going to be a nothing burger. Matthew, what do you think? Nothing burger?
Well, listen, Melanie has more insight than I do for sure, but I'm definitely inclined to agree with what I see in here. I think I'd even venture over 80. I'll hang my hat on that one, which is always a fraud exercise, but there, it's out in the world now. Listen, I do think that the big piece here, which Melanie was alluding to, is the fact that I can only imagine, that Pierre wants this behind him. It's a lot of work. It's very distracting. I remember in 2015, and into 2016 when Tom Mulcair was in the same position with the leadership review. Obviously, we all know how that turned out. But the one thing that I suspect is similar is how much energy people around the leader and at the party have to put into the whole process, right? Your supporters are not spending time getting your message out there to Canadians and doing that opposition work. You're spending time shoring up support internally and speaking to issues that don't always resonate with everyday Canadians and are more specific to people that support you in the party. So I can't imagine how anxious they are to be able to get over this hump and move on to the things that will potentially make them more successful down the road.
Okay. Excellent points all around and a great conversation to start the week and start the new session. Thank you so much. Melanie, great to hear from you today. Thanks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
and
Rob.
Matthew Dubé, we'll speak next week. Matthew Dubé, Vice President of Proof Strategies, and Melanie Paradis from Texture Communications. Talkback. With so much to talk about. Talkback is coming up right after the news on News Radio. Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And we have several topics in the mix for you to consider today, offer an opinion on, all related to stories that are in the news. Because there's a lot of news. Our call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Let's start with the latest news in this country. Parliament is back. The Prime Minister's been traveling here, there, and everywhere. You know that, he says. He says he's trying to drum up business for Canada because of what's going on in the United States. But the Liberals know that there are big issues at home and that many Canadians are struggling and that the cost of living is a major problem because the Liberals see the polls just like we see the polls. And they know that a lot of Canadians are tapped out because of high housing costs and high prices at the grocery store. So the Liberals are outlining what they call a suite of affordability measures from the Liberals, including a top-up to the GST rebate that will start in July. And the GST payments, if you qualify for the GST credit, will increase 25% over the next 5 years. So for the 2026-2027 benefit year, a single individual would qualify for an extra $130 a year. And a couple with 2 children would get an extra $270. But wait, there's more because there's going to be a one-time payment in June equal to a 50% increase in the value of the GST credit that will increase this year's payments by hundreds of dollars more. Government is also increasing federal funding to local food banks and will provide financial assistance to Canadian food companies. I will note that on the GST rebate news, they are somewhat similar to what anti-poverty and food bank groups have been calling for. They have been asking for the government to bring forward something like an essentials benefit. This is sort of keeping with that request. So we would like your reaction to this today. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. What would you say? Every little bit helps? Every little bit helps? What do you think about the dollars and cents on offer here? Because when I first read the news reports before the formal announcement from the Prime Minister, my first reaction was I was rather underwhelmed. You know, a little bit more is better than a little bit less. I get that. But for a single person who has to qualify for this in the first place to get an extra $130 a year, quite frankly, doesn't seem like that much. It works out to an extra $2.50 a week. $2.50 a week. And for a couple with 2 children, an extra $270 a year. You'll take it, but it's an extra $5.20 a week. For a household with 4 people living in it, an extra $5.20 a week. More because of the one-time payment in June. But what do you think about it? A solid announcement? A recognition of tough times? Better than nothing? Or inadequate? Inadequate, given how much the cost of living has gone up in the last few years. What do you think about what the government is announcing here? It says it's going to help low-income Canadians with the high cost of living. Love your reaction to it. 1-833-668-2577, one topic that's been in the news today. Then there's everything that's going on between Carney and Trump. Lots of developments about that this weekend that we'd love your opinion on. Over the weekend, Donald Trump said if Canada goes ahead with a trade deal with China, he would impose a 100% tariff on Canada, on all Canadian exports to the United States. Not just that, Donald Trump is now calling Prime Minister Carney governor. He's back to doing that again, calling the Canadian Prime Minister governor, as in, governor of the 51st state. On social media, Trump said Canada would be eaten alive by China, said our businesses, our social fabric, our whole way of life would be destroyed if we do a deal with China. We would be systematically destroying ourselves. What do you make of all of this? What do you make of all of this? Prime Minister kind of brushed it off today. But what do you think of it? What do you think of it? What do you think about Donald Trump once again calling the Canadian Prime Minister, this time Mark Carney, calling him the governor? Used to do that to Trudeau all the time, right? Called Justin Trudeau the governor. Now he's saying that about Mark Carney. And he's warning Mark Carney, don't get too cozy with China. What do you think about this, everyone? These comments from Donald Trump, the ravings of a lunatic? Or is Mark Carney blowing up our relationship with the United States? And another story in the news all the time, and certainly all weekend, what's going on in Minneapolis? What do you think about what's going on in Minneapolis? Another protester shot and killed by ICE agents, Alex Pretty. And the Trump people calling him everything from a domestic terrorist to a would-be assassin. Says he was interfering with federal law enforcement action, putting the lives of ICE agents in danger. It was an act of self-defense. Of course, his supporters are saying what the Trump people are saying never happened. And you can see it for yourself on various videos. He had a gun. He had a handgun. But reports say ICE agents took that gun away and then they shot him and they killed him. And that he wasn't a domestic terrorist or a would-be assassin. He was a nurse. And a nice guy. And many people are saying ICE is out of control, killing Americans in the streets, and that the Trump administration is lying about it. Share your opinions, please. What do you think about what's going on in Minneapolis? 1-833-668-2577. All topics in the news. Another busy news week underway. Liberals announcing affordability measures. Donald Trump calling Mark Carney governor and warning Carney, don't do a deal with China. Now, what do you think about what's going on in Minneapolis? 1-833-668-2577, our call-in line on Talkback. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we have 3 topics on the go, all related to news stories in the mix today. The Liberals announcing affordability measures if you qualify for the GST rebate. Could be in line for an extra $130 a year, plus more this year because of a special one-time payment. Donald Trump is calling Mark Carney governor these days and warning Mark Carney not to do a deal with China. Your thoughts on that? And what do you think about the news out of Minneapolis? What you're hearing there? 1-833-668-2577. Let's kick these around for a couple of hours and start with Steve is in Calgary today. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Rob. I'm just calling in regards to the GST rebate and the Canada-China trade relations. I think they're both very intertwined. Our cost of living is obviously through the roof, and an extra $130 a year for low-income people is quite frankly a joke. Our government over the past couple of decades has really backed us as Canadians into a corner. We rely almost entirely on the U.S. for exports, when really we should be focusing on energy and mineral independence. If we could focus on building pipelines, getting our oil and gas products and our energy products overseas to other markets, I think, quite frankly, we'd be much better off. By cozying up to the Chinese, it's a lose-lose situation for us. Maybe in the short term we get some export trading partners, but we're partnering with the highest polluter on earth. And at the same time, you see the response from Donald Trump, 100% tariffs. It's going to destroy us. I think long-term is a massive, massive mistake. I think we need to be focusing on energy independence and energy exports to other markets.
So you think this move with China, which includes tariff relief on a major export, canola, and also a $1 billion business in seafood for Atlantic Canada in exchange for whatever 50,000 EVs into this country here, you think that's doing more damage than it is good for Canada because of the way the Trump administration is reacting?
Absolutely. We need to keep in mind that those are a couple of small industries, and no doubt those are big numbers. Those are big advantages to us to get canola and seafood to China, but 100% tariff on everything else. Trump's got us bent over a barrel with USMCA coming up for renegotiation. We don't have anything for leverage here. And I think by, pissing him off, quite frankly, by doing one of these small trade deals in China is not in our best interest. We need to try to play good with him to get the best deal possible with USMCA while focusing on trying to find, energy independence, getting pipelines, getting our material or our oil to seawater. I think we've got better options here, Rob.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Off and running. Let's go to Shane. Up next, first-time caller, Shane. Hi, Shane.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, Shane. What's your opinion?
Well, I think our deal with China, it may not be the best deal, that we could have gotten, but I think it's a good step in the right direction. I think with Trump doing stuff that he's doing right now, I think, he just needs, maybe do the short-term game and get some trading partners for the next 3 years until hopefully the next administration we can kind of get back to some decorum. But I also kind of wanted to talk about all the issues going on with ICE and all that.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah. What do you think about the stuff in Minneapolis? What's happening there?
I think history is repeating itself here. What we saw in the 30s and 40s in Europe. We're seeing a lot of the same behaviors, a lot of the same. I think me personally, I think this ICE group, I think they're no different than Hitler's SS, his little special army. Like, they're just doing his bidding, there's ways of going about immigration, and this is definitely not it. So I think
the Trump people are saying remarks like that, what you just said, that's what makes the ICE agent's job even more dangerous, because it inflames the passions when you're calling these ICE agents like Nazis, for example. What do you think of that?
killing people for no reason. Like there's what I'm seeing is there's these ICE agents that clearly are not of right mind. Shoot first, ask questions later. And we see stuff like this happen. Mass killings overseas in places like either Iran or Russia, and stuff like that, and we're putting sanctions on them for doing these horrific things, but we're not sanctioning the United States for killing these civilians.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. I'm glad you weighed in on that. I hope it sparks some more discussions on the events of this weekend in Minneapolis, and we'll get other reactions from other callers. And just like that, we're off and running for Talkback for another week. 1-833-668-2577. 3 lines available. Have your say. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Liberals have some new affordability measures, changing the name of the GST rebate, increasing it year after year, and there will be a special one-time payment to help people with the cost of living. Donald Trump is calling Mr. Carney governor now and saying, Mark Carney, don't do a deal with China or we're going to hit you with big tariffs, 100% tariffs. And what do you think about everything that's going on in Minneapolis? Share your thoughts on the developments there this weekend. 1-833-668-2577. Peter's in Halifax. Hello, Peter. Thanks for calling,
how
Peter.
are you?
Yeah, very good, Peter.
Always happy to talk to you, Rob.
Well, thank you so much for calling.
I've noticed this since Trump went on the warpath against Canada. Is there are so many of my fellow constituents just freaking out. Like, how could they? Like, what, and Europe's the same way. Like, what is happening? We're being attacked. What have we done wrong? This man's a madman. But, I could go Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya. I could name half of the countries in the world where we were 100% behind any sanction, any war, any military incursion, any military base, any whatever kind of punishment they wanted to mete out on people who didn't look like us. And we were behind them all the way. We went to Libya, we went everywhere with them. And now all of a sudden it's turned around. And Henry Kissinger said it, America doesn't have friends or enemies. It has interests. And I'm sure that one of Donald Trump's and America's interest is to complete the independence from the British crown. And like I said, what could we expect?
What does that mean for us in this country then? What does that mean for us?
It means we are at the mercy of the same military and economic juggernaut that we have been 100% supporting since the end of World War II. It's our turn.
Oh, it's our turn. What does our turn look like? I mean, because there are people who are talking about this and worried about it. I mean, does this mean they're going to, roll the tanks down Yonge Street, take over Parliament Hill? I mean, just what does this look like?
How about 100% tariff if we do business with China?
100% tariff. Okay.
That's
economic pressure.
Well, what do they do? What are they doing to Iran? Economic pressure, sanctions. What are they doing to Russia? Economic pressure, sanctions. All they have to do is say, no, we're not going to buy your oil.
Okay. So what do you think then, if that's the case, what do you think the prime minister should do with something like China? He has this new deal with China. Should he not do that in fear of angering the United States?
He's already canceled it. I think he's already canceled it, hasn't he?
The prime minister with his deal with China?
Yeah, I think that's already canceled. Yeah.
No, I've not read
haven't.
anything
I'm
to
not
that
sure,
effect.
but my ex kind of tells me that. But anyways,
No,
Rob, let's wish us all a good luck because we're in the crosshairs, buddy. Have a good day.
That's pretty bleak. 1-833-668-2577 and have your say on a busy start to the weekend news here on News Radio. So we've been talking about the events in Minneapolis this weekend, gathering your reaction to that. President Trump has taken to calling Prime Minister Carney governor. He hasn't said that before, but he referenced that this weekend and said, don't do a deal with China or we'll hit you with 100% tariffs. And the Liberals announced new affordability measures today, an increase to the GST rebate and a special one-time payment to help offset the rising cost of living. I'll have your reaction to all of these topics today. Sean is in Cambridge. Hi, Sean.
Good afternoon. Yeah,
hi,
I
Sean.
think a lot of people are living in the past. Our relationship with the United States is gone. It's being run by a man-child, a toddler. He's unstable. They're worried about he's going to be offended. The man lives. To him, offended is a state of mind. It doesn't matter what we do. We have to look out for ourselves. If we can get a deal with China, that's great. I mean, China has not threatened to invade us. The leaders of China are not threatening to take over Canada. He is. They got to deal with that. Like I said, I'm sorry. People are just living in the past. It's done. And as for the USMCA that's coming up, any deal that we get is going to be bad for us because Trump's going to make sure of that.
Okay, well, it's kind of a rosy view of China that you have. Well documented that the Chinese government interferes in our affairs. If you were, a Canadian of Chinese descent, you might be harassed. Your family could be intimidated back in China if you didn't hold, pro-China views. I mean, let's not sugarcoat how China behaves in this country either, Sean.
Oh no, China's not great either. But that's going to happen whether we have a deal or not. We're not going to change China's behavior. Like they're an old civilization. We have to make deals with people we don't like. But you know what? China's a long way away. They're not going to invade us. The United States is on our doorstep. But we have to make deals with other countries. If Trump gets upset, that's his state of mind. Like I said, the man's a toddler. We have to deal with it. Sorry.
Okay, so just because you brought up that word invasion, there's polling that a significant percentage of the population is worried about that. Are you one of them?
I am.
You are? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
If it depends on what he has for breakfast one day to the next, quite honestly. Even if you get a deal with him, because we do have a deal with him, it doesn't matter to him. He changes the rules from day to day. Like right now, the existing deal is still in force, and yet he changes the rules as he goes and puts tariffs on us. At 100% tariff, so what? You just can't deal with somebody like that.
I know you watch a lot of this stuff and you pay attention to it, and I appreciate that. Do you have any thought on what's happening in Minneapolis? What do you think about what's going on there?
People are comparing the ICE people with the SS. That's inaccurate. They're more like the SA, the old Sturm Arbeitung, the thugs that used to run in the streets. They say don't compare them to that. It gets them upset. Well, that's how bullies work. Don't fight back. It just makes us mad, quite frankly. And and if they're saying their officers are stressed out, well, maybe they're not fit for duty if they're too stressed out. Like that man that was just shot. It's funny how the conservatives will say, "Oh, I'm going to stand on I want to stand on my Second Amendment rights." Yet when somebody else does, they get killed. I saw that video. That man was disarmed before he was shot. There was no excuse to say that he was threatening them. He was disarmed when they shot him. He was under their control. There was no excuse for that.
All right, Sean. Thank you for your call. Let's go to Halifax. Donna's in Halifax. Thanks for calling, Donna. What's your opinion
hi.
on
Thanks
everything?
for taking my call.
You're
as
welcome.
far as this governor stuff, Trump called Trudeau governor, and it started as a joke because Trudeau Trump and Trudeau didn't get along, and Trudeau was two-faced to Trump, and that's why he did it, just to tease him or bug him or whatever. And he's doing the same thing with Carney. And Trump, the United States will never invade Canada. I can't understand what is wrong with people. I mean, if they wanted to invade, we'd be gone in 2 days. They'd have Canada. They have no intention. He's just saying that to bug people, and that's Donald Trump. And as far as Minneapolis, the ICE, I respect the law. They're there to get rid of the scum and the murderers, the drug addicts, and blah, 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 all the others. And people are there spitting at them, throwing stuff at them, doing this, doing that. They're harassing them. And that guy, why would you, any normal, sane person, go to something like that where everybody's on edge with a gun and extra magazines? What the heck was that guy thinking? He didn't deserve to get killed, but he should never have gone with a gun. You go anywhere with a gun where there's a bunch of police and protests and all this and that, things can happen, you know.
Well,
and sometimes,
but again, in the United States, carrying a gun is legal in a lot of places, and this guy had a permit to carry that gun.
Let me ask you, if you went to that protest, I wouldn't be going there anyway, but if you went to that protest, would you take a gun and some extra magazines with you?
Probably not. Probably
That's
not.
right.
No. Okay.
No, to me, that's just looking
right,
for
but
trouble.
what about, to the previous caller's point, that they disarmed him and then they shot him. Doesn't that worry you at all?
I saw different videos. The truth will eventually come out, hopefully. I've seen different videos of this, that, and the other thing. I don't know what to believe anymore. You can't believe the media anymore. You can't believe anybody anymore. And eventually, let them do whatever and come out. Same as that, what's her name, that Renee Good that took her car. To me, it looked like she was running into him. And sometimes, if you're a police officer, you're going to get seconds, say, oh my God, are they going to kill me, shoot me, or whatever? You have seconds to react. And, it may not always be the proper reaction,
let me just shoot this one right back at you. You say, the truth will come out eventually, but will it come out eventually if it's people within the Trump administration who want to do the investigation when they're already calling the guy a terrorist and an assassin and everything else?
Well,
will the truth come out?
Like this other, the other one that was killed, they checked into her past. She was an anti-ICE group that she belonged to and all this and that. I don't know. I just can't understand. I feel sorry that the guy died. I don't like to see any innocent person die. But I wish we had somebody like ICE even come to Canada, not like similar to that, come to Canada. Nova Scotia has the highest number of per capita of human trafficking in all across Canada. They have the most people in Nova Scotia.
All right, I think you'd be in the minority there. I think you'd be in the minority there in Halifax, which is fine to have the minority view. I think you'd be in the minority, though, in Halifax, wanting ICE, roaming the streets of Halifax. I could be mistaken. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's get right to our next caller. Carl, thank you for being accommodating, Carl. I really appreciate that. Go ahead.
Oh, I appreciate your accommodation. I've got 8 points to make here. I'm going to zip through it really quick. Through it really quick, and then you can come around and ask me questions afterwards if you don't mind. Lies, okay? Trump is a child throwing tantrums. I say elbows way up and take no prisoners. I am a dual citizen. I grew up most of my life in the States, so I know what I'm talking about. I've experienced all the stuff that goes on down there myself. I can honestly say the cops down there are absolutely crooked as can be. It's just disgusting, honestly. Now, the cops are underpaid, and that's why. Now, this 100% tariff thing. Oh, first, before I go to that, real quick on China. Trump said, yeah, if they can make a deal with China, I think it's a good idea. And then he circles back around and says, oh, no, they can't do that, whatever. First of all, he denies global warming. and everything. I mean, the measles is not a thing, and now there's outbreaks everywhere. This guy is just a joke. I think it's important to stick to our guns and try to make everything green. So that's electric vehicles and hybrids and so on. If we can build and manufacture Chinese cars here, I think that's a great idea. As well as now, if he wants to slap tariffs on us because of that, and first of all, to clear up real quick, they said what Donald Trump said is that he doesn't want absolute free trade with China. He's got all kinds of concerns, and with the cars, we can go on about that, but I'm going to keep moving along. If he slaps, the point is it's just one deal. I mean, all this canola is going to go to China as per usual, and then we're going to get affordable EVs out of it. Now, if he puts 100% tax on us, I'll tell you what, the Americans are going to suffer from that, and they're going to see it quick. Well, then our countermeasure is, we need leverage. We can't let them bully us. So when we go to the meeting in July, we have to have the upper hand here. We can cut off, we'll put 100% tax on everything that we send to the States, electric, potash, lumber, everything. If he wants to come at us that way, and in the long run, when we come to the table, we're going to have some leverage instead of nothing to deal with here. And then on the Griffins, he wants our water too, by the way. We control the water in the Great Lakes and the waterway that gets all the ships through the St. Lawrence River. We control everything. The F-35 scrap the whole thing. They don't support us now. They're not to be trusted. Griffins all the way, manufacture and maintain them here in Canada. And that's how I feel about all of it. So if you have anything, and the shooting.
My only question would be, what do you think about Minneapolis?
Yeah, the shooting. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. First of all, one thing that no one's talking about in all the clips we've seen, they said that woman that they shoved was an illegal immigrant, and she was known to be a dangerous illegal immigrant. They shoved her to the ground, and then the other guy came to her aid, and then they killed him. And what did they do? They let that lady just skirmish away. That's a lie. They weren't after that lady. They let her walk away after that.
Okay. All right, Carl, you've been very, very thorough. So I'm just going to wrap up our conversation there. I'm going to have to wrap up the first hour of Talkback. As a matter of fact, though, it's been very busy. I'm not surprised given everything that's going on in the news. It's amazing to me that the Liberals can announce, what they're touting is a $3 billion affordability program today, and next to no one has a comment on this. Maybe that speaks for itself. Maybe it's because an extra $130 a year for a single individual, if you don't include the special one-time top-up that's coming in June. Maybe it's because people realize, hey, that's $2.50 a week. Don't spend it all in one place. Can you even get a large coffee for $2.50 anymore? Trump, Carney, China, governor, the situation in Minneapolis. Those are the popular topics today, it seems. But 1-833-668-2577. And we're back with a full hour of Talkback right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio. Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback on a Monday. Lots of topics for you to discuss with us today. The Liberals announcing new affordability measures with Parliament back in action for the first time since mid-December. A top up to the GST rebate if you qualify for that, and a special one-time payment coming your way this June. All so you can deal with the rising cost of living. It's a $3 billion suite of packages, according to the Liberals. Love to know what you think. Donald Trump has taken to calling Mark Carney governor and warning Mark Carney not to do a deal with China. What do you think about that? Or what's happening in Minneapolis, a weekend of terrible events in Minneapolis? Have your say on any or all of those topics today. Let's go to Lethbridge in hour number 2 and get things underway with Norman in Lethbridge, Alberta. Hi, Norman.
Hey, hi, Rob. How are you?
Very good. Yep. Very good, Norman. Thank you. Survived the weekend. It was minus 33 Saturday night, but we made it through okay. So everything's good.
That's great. Yeah, no, my question, Rob, is for the trade deal in the U.S. and Canada. My question is why we can't get a trade deal? What is on the paper? What is the Liberals insisting on having? Is there a bunch of contingencies, policies for carbon taxes, carbon capture, carbon this, carbon that? Is that one of the reasons why Trump will not sign a deal with Canada? There's got to be a reason besides just all of this theatrics about the.
Well, I think we know what the Trump administration is unhappy with, because they've outlined it not once but twice. I mean, they don't like that we have supply management for the dairy sector. They want more access, right, for Canadian dairy into the American market. They don't necessarily want us to dismantle supply management, although they think it's a silly system that gives preferential treatment to our dairy farmers. But a lot of Canadians think that as well, and supply management gets blamed for higher costs. So they want more access for their dairy industry here. What else? Defensive cultural industry. So they don't like the idea that we have a streaming tax, for example. They want us to get rid of that. They don't like the Online News Act as well, because that goes after the technology companies in the United States. So those are the two things we know are up for discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what else is there that nobody's talking about? Then you know what I mean. I'd like to see the documents, but anyways, nevertheless, yeah. And
they also want us to buy the F-35. We committed to buying the F-35. They don't like the idea that we might back out and buy those Swedish airplanes.
Well, this is a continuation of you know what I mean, distrust. So I find, and especially when they went to China, this and that, and all over Qatar and everywhere. You know, I understand we have to make deals and trades with other countries, but you know, you can't go to a country and talk bad about the country that you're trading with, that you do 80% of your trade with. You know what I mean? Well, of course you're going to get some feedback from that country, right? But anyways.
Sure. Sure.
And also, like, for the dairy
just on that point, when it comes to dealing with the United States, was it a mistake to go to China and do a deal with China? Was it a mistake from our Carney to do that?
I don't know, why did we not consult the U.S.? Hey, we want to do this and this and this with China so we can get our canola. You know what I mean? So we can get our canolas over there or whatever, right? You know, I don't know why they don't try and work together with the states, and they just bang. They rush off and do a bunch of stuff, piss off the U.S., and first thing you know, we're getting slapped with more tariffs, right? You know, right. Your number one trading partner is the U.S. Talk with them. You know what I mean? It's
sure,
I don't understand why we, you know. And for the dairy stuff, I know farmers. I'm in construction. We work for these guys quite a bit. They dump in milk in gutters every day. You know what I mean? I find that's a disgrace and whatever. But I think John Kennedy down in the U.S. has put it pretty much where it should be. He said we should drop all tariffs and taxes and everything and have free trade both sides of the border, and let the businesses make the best deals, and whoever can make the best deals will make the most money, right? But anyways, I guess that's just not ever going to happen. And the GST thing, that is ridiculous. We are paying for that. I don't get any of that stuff. I just pay for it. And I find instead of doing rebates like that, why don't they focus on what's causing food to go up? Maybe reduce some of the industrial carbon taxes. Maybe reduce some of the expenses, the taxes that they put on food to produce it, the packaging and all this stuff. You're not solving anything by throwing out a couple $100, which is billions. And all it does is put us further in debt, and then everything goes up again, right? So I find that it's complete waste of money. Complete waste of money.
All right. Thank you. Off and running here. Nathaniel up next in Calgary today. Hello, Nathaniel.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Nathaniel. What's on your mind today? What do you want to talk about?
Oh, there's too many things.
So
I would
many
say
things.
starting off, there's too many things. But to start off with, I would say my comment on the Canada, the Carney, the rebate. Canada's doomed in so many ways. Like the last caller, I can't understand why we wouldn't just cut the tax. These rebates, like you said, we're going to be paying for. I'm not going to get a single dollar of that rebate, and I don't need it. But everybody would benefit without the rebate with just lower tax. And if you can't lower the tax, then what are we doing wrong in Canada when it comes to how we're using our money? I know we spend a lot of money giving to other countries. First Nations up in northern Manitoba and different communities have no clean water. Why can't we put money to, our own country, into our own people who are paying for the things that are happening in this country? Like lower the tax, we can afford these things, right?
Okay, broad-based tax relief. Take a look at, the foreign aid budget, for example.
Pretty basic,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay,
But,
basic stuff, yeah.
And the second comment would be, I lived in Manitoba for 25 years. I wanted to call last week when you guys were talking about how cold it was. I said I was going to call and to say, dress up, dress warm, and you're going to be just fine in minus 40. Living there for 25 years and thinking about Minnesota, I have to think, I got friends and family in the police service. My first comment would be respect the law enforcement, and you're not going to have an issue. They're there for a reason, and without them, we're screwed. So, and then secondly on that, I think Manitoba's pretty close to where Minnesota is. Immigration, whatever else is going on, there's a lot of it happening in the city that's causing all of these issues. Minnesota's there today. Winnipeg's not too far behind. I wish Wabkanu would actually understand that, because that's a major, major issue, and people might not like ICE, but they're there for a reason, and you got to start protecting the people who are living there from those who are coming in.
But I guess, are they acting appropriately? Are they doing their job appropriately?
Yeah.
Particularly with this particular case on the weekend with this guy Paradis. Did they take his gun away and then shoot him? I guess that's what everybody's wondering, because the evidence would seem to indicate, given all the videos, they knew he had a gun, they took the gun away, and they still put 7 or 8 bullets in the guy. Is that appropriate behavior? 1-833-668-2577. Have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Doug in Cambridge is up next on the Monday Talkback. Hi, Doug.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Thanks for putting it in perspective that the government's going to go get me a coffee a week going forward. That puts it in perspective. I listened to an American talk show. It's called What's Right, What's Left, the voice of the Christian resistance. It's worldwide off the internet. They get people calling in, offering money without asking for it. And you get an honest perspective of what's going on. There was a big problem in Somalia where all the citizenry were in danger because of the corrupt ruling government. So the Americans opened up the doors and said, you can come over here until things are settled down and it's okay. If you didn't get a visa, now that time is up. The Somalian government has been changed and it's safe to go back, and they're not leaving. What had happened is they got together with the corrupt governor who has quit and got a multi-billion-dollar scam for child care.
Yeah, we're all familiar with that. That we're more focusing on the actions of ICE here this weekend. This guy had a handgun. He went to a protest. He went to an anti-ICE protest with a gun. Some people are questioning the wisdom of that. Should he have done that? Should he have intervened? But was he disarmed? Because he had the gun legally, by all accounts, concealed carry. Did they disarm that guy and then shoot him? And
I said that's
if
an
so,
AI.
is that the appropriate kind of action for an ICE agent to take or any law enforcement official to take?
Let's talk about a different subject.
No, let's not talk about a different subject. No, let's not, Doug. It's let's talk about that subject.
I'm saying you need to
Well, I don't.
consider that
It doesn't matter what
why
you're
are
saying.
you
It's not the Doug and Cambridge show. Thank you. Let's go to Mark. Is in Calgary. Let's go to Mark up next. Thank you. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah.
Greetings to you.
Go ahead.
Let's cool things down a little bit here. I think there's quite a bit of China phobia in Alberta here. We've got a separation agenda, and I think they were really afraid that Canada's going to become communist because of the Chinese, and that's going to happen.
Really?
They're paranoid of all these Chinese cars that are coming over to our country, and this is like a lifeline. Doug's crying for what's going to happen to these vacant plants in Ontario and Brampton. The Chinese are giving us a lifeline. They're talking about bringing these mobile factories overseas to us, starting up plants. So these will be manned by maintenance by Canadian workers. It's a lifeline. Vehicles that are coming over, they're light years ahead of anything in North America. They're competing not with the world market, they're competing with the internal Chinese market. They're so sophisticated.
Yeah. But are they fairly competing? Are they fairly competing when they're so heavily subsidized by the government? I mean, there's a reason why China can sell a vehicle for $30,000 that would cost $70,000 here. You appreciate that, right? The labor, the environmental standards, all of these things that adds to the cost of doing business in Canada. So is it a level playing field?
It is a level playing field. These are called dark factories. No, these are called dark factories. They're produced by robots. They turn lights off in the factories, and they just do it. The only thing that's there is the people for maintenance of these robots. So that's the reason why their labor is so. They don't have to pay much labor. It's the robots doing it.
All right.
So
you would welcome 50,000 Chinese EVs a year into this country, even if because Doug Ford isn't crazy about it. The Ontario Premier, he says it's going to hurt industry, going to cost Canadian jobs. And it's the same with the unions. Of course, they're totally opposed to it. It'll be interesting to listen what comes out of this meeting between Ontario Premier Doug Ford and the Prime Minister today. Meeting happening right now, as a matter of fact. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Rob in Cambridge is up next on Talkback today. Hi, Rob.
How are you, my brother from another mother?
Yeah, very good, Rob. What's on your mind?
Well, you know what makes me laugh, and you might know the answer to this question, by the way. What president deported more people than anybody?
I don't know. Who?
It was Obama. 3.3 million illegal immigrants deported during his time. Right now, we're up to about 430,000 in the U.S. Do you know what the difference was?
What's the difference?
You didn't have a lunatic press down in the U.S. calling people Nazis, ICE agents, or SS. Nothing. It was all quiet. Everybody got picked up, gone. Amazing how when Orange Man does it, everything bad. And that's the problem.
But I don't remember. The difference is I don't recall American citizens being shot on the street.
Well, that's the point. Nobody was there to protest. We're whipping people up into this. And when I say we, it's the press. It is the literal U.S. press. Watch it every night, Rob. Flick through the channels, and you'll see every one of them, from MSNBC to ABC to every one of them, calls him a crazy man, a lunatic. How long are we going to put up with this? With Obama, he won a Peace Prize before he even walked in the door. So do you see the difference in treatment and president?
So you think it's about media bias?
It's 100% media bias. This is what causes all these lunatic professional people
Agitators?
that go out there that get paid to agitate, right, with the blue hair. They're all on payroll. They go out, they cause a psych. You know what? One of your callers said earlier, if a cop pulls you over and asks you to get out of the car and you don't heed his orders, guess what? You're probably going to get into problems. Secondly, more importantly than that, on your other topic, it's amazing. So Trudeau sits there at a table in a big dinner, turns around, Trump makes the joke and says, why don't we have free trade amongst our countries completely? Take everything away. Trudeau's answer, we can't survive. Well, maybe you should become the 51st state. Starts from that joke, but Canadians are too dumb to realize the truth in that statement. Without the U.S., we can't survive. They're 80% of trade. It's no different than that woman that wants to leave her husband. She wants the house. She wants the 3 kids. She wants the this. And then what happens at the end? What do you mean you're not paying me? Well, what do you mean? Okay. I took care of you all those years. I bathed you. I paid for it.
I don't know. I have a very sympathetic view to what's happening in the United States. Very flattering of the, orange man, if you will, Rob. But I get it. That's your worldview. That's fine. We'll see what happens with that. If you have any thought, what's going on in Minneapolis? What is going on in Minneapolis? What's your opinion on what's happening in Minneapolis? What do you think of the American president once again calling the Canadian prime minister the governor? They don't do a deal with China or you'll get a 100% tariff. 1-833-668-2577. It's News Radio. Talkback. We have been talking a little bit, although not too much, given it was a $3 billion announcement today. The Liberals kicking off Parliament by announcing new affordability measures, renaming the GST credit or the GST rebate the groceries and essentials rebate. So it's going to have a new name, and it'll mean outside of a big one-time payment this year that people will get in June, for a single individual actually qualifies for the GST rebate, it's $130 a year. $130 a year. That's $2.50 per week to help that single individual with the cost of living. Isn't that something? What do you think of Donald Trump calling Mark Carney the governor? He did that in his social media post on the weekend. He used to say that about Trudeau all the time. Governor Trudeau. Now it's Governor Carney. And it's saying, if you do a deal with China, 100% tariff. And if you have any thoughts on the events of Minneapolis over the weekend, another shooting by ICE, another fatal shooting, second in a number of weeks down there. Love to hear your opinion. Zach is in Calgary. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Zach.
I want to talk about Carney's pennies on the dollar rebate that aren't going to do much for my family, unfortunately. I don't even think we'd be eligible for it, even though we're a modest family on a single income. But funny enough, I think programs that Trump was talking about, like no tax on tips or overtime, capping interest rates on credit cards, that would be a huge boost for my family situation.
All right. What would you rather see? What would you say rather see? So credit card interest you said? That would be preferable.
Not so much credit card interest, but like overtime, no taxing on overtime. Would be,
yeah, okay. All right.
But as a tradesman, I kind of like to observe things with my eyes and think practically about problem solving.
Sure.
And I work close to a food bank, and when I see the long line, I notice something interesting. Like there's a lot of newer vans and trucks, like 2020 plus. So you can kind of draw 2 quick conclusions from this. One, there are people who are taking advantage of the system, but I think the more insightful observation is that these are middle class people who likely have a mortgage and car payments with almost nothing left over for food and essentials. So, unfortunately, these people are in many cases an afterthought because on paper, the government sees they make enough money to not be in poverty, but they aren't rich enough to make ends meet on everything. So I think tackling that group, like the middle class, and doing things like, no tax on tips, on overtime, and, capping interest rates, predatory interest rates, I think that would be tremendous and much better than what they're doing right now. The $2, the $2 extra a week, like, that's a joke.
Right. Yeah, probably a keen observation. Thank you for your call, Zach, in Calgary today. As I say, they're basically renaming the GST credit, rebranding it. The Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit. There'll probably be, I suspect, a media buy about that. Look for ads on the hockey game. It's a lot of money. I mean, in government terms, a lot of money. The Prime Minister said today it's going to be about $3 billion to get it going. Even for the government, that's still real money, $3 billion. For actual money in the bank accounts of Canadians, it doesn't come across as a lot of money to me. I do wonder if it's going to make a big difference. So what used to be the GST credit, those payments are going to increase by 25% a year over the next 5 years, starting in July of this year. And in addition to that, one-time payment in June equal to 50% of the increase this year. One time only. The government is saying, when you take both of those measures together, a family of 4, they qualify for the GST rebate to begin with, will get $1,890 this year, a single person an extra $950. If they get the payments to begin with. A lot of Canadians make too much money. They don't get the GST credit in the first place. So you're not getting anything extra if you don't qualify for the GST rebate to begin with. But most of the extra money is coming in the form of this one-time payment in June. By the way, that's leading to all kinds of speculation. The Liberals are going to call an election, probably around June, to coincide with these payments. People are, they'll have more money in the bank. They'll thank the government for the extra cash. They'll vote Liberal. That speculation at this point. When it was first leaked to the media in advance of the Prime Minister's announcement at a grocery store in Ottawa today, the news media was reporting that a single individual who qualifies for the GST would get an extra $130 a year, not including the one-time payment, which works out to $2.50 a week. $2.50 a week. But the government is saying if you include the one-time payment, it's $950 for the year, which is an extra $18 a week or $73 a month. Better than nothing, and I would say better in your bank account than in the government's bank account. But if you have any thoughts on it, those are the details behind it. Darko, up next in Calgary. Hello, Darko. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Rob. Can you hear me?
Hey there. Hear you just fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hope you've been doing good, and Happy New Year's. Yeah, I got a bunch of opinions on every single topic, so I don't know where you want to start.
Start wherever you want.
GST rebates. My issue with any sort of income redistribution is that we are raising people that are expecting government to take care of their lifestyles and disincentivize their own internal human desire to achieve and do more. I do understand that there's people that really need help, and but at the same time, even those people will kind of become dependable and addicted to free money. And okay. I do come from Bosnia, and I moved to Winnipeg as a refugee, and I did get help, but I did notice in my first year when I was on, I don't know what the program was. It was some sort of welfare that government pays for a year for you to kind of learn English. I did notice that a lot of people who came before me are still on welfare. They're doing the cash jobs because doing anything more will cut out the government programs. And most
so you think it's at risk of creating a culture of dependency?
100%. And I do notice
right.
big difference.
Let's move along because we're a little tight on time. What's your next point?
The point, the ice and the lack of common sense. I had a Monday morning safety meeting, and my point that I had to make as a safety point was, hey guys, if you are facing the law enforcement of any sort, no matter how unfair it seems, obey, listen, and do not impede. Lack of common sense cost that guy life, and unfortunately, that's another generation of people who missed out on education.
Okay, sounds like he's what, the author of his own misfortune? Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. It was a terrible coincidental accident, and everybody has a little bit of guilt there. But the last thing I would do if I had a gun on me would jaywalk and push any sort of law enforcement. Okay, I might be yelling on the side of the road unless I told to shut up, and then I would shut up. And if they told me to leave, I would probably step back.
You would leave.
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would leave necessarily, depending. But I would probably weigh my chances of surviving the day and get my chance in court maybe tomorrow to make my point versus getting a bullet and
yeah, fair enough. Okay, thank you. Interesting comments all around. Darko, thanks for your call, and Happy New Year to you as well. Be right back with more of your calls on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Russ in High River is up next on Talkback. Hello, Russ.
Hi, how are you today?
Yeah, very good, Russ.
Good.
What's on your mind?
You know what? I was listening. I'm watching whatever they call it, speaker time or whatever it is on the Parliament channel. Anyway, you know what? The Liberals had a weekend. The Liberals had a weekend meeting. They know they were in trouble in the economy. So what do they come up with? They bring out the old GST thing and rename it and say, well, now let them eat cake, because that's exactly what they gave you. Enough to buy a cake, maybe. I don't know. But that's exactly what it is. They have no idea how to get out of this problem.
Maybe a chocolate chip muffin, not so much a cake, but maybe a chocolate chip muffin.
If you figure out what they gave you, and if you went to McDonald's every day, you'd be broke.
It's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money.
It's embarrassing. That's an embarrassing statement they're making as parliamentary. Because I bet you, out of all those people, if I went and asked them what the price of beef is, none of them would know. Not one of them have any idea what's going on, because they live in Ottawa, that la land that's got its own economy. The rest of the people outside are the ones that hurt. You want to do something?
Well, it is interesting that you raise that, because I remember when Mark Carney was running for the Liberal leadership, they had to have a debate. They had a debate in English. They had a debate in French. And in the French leaders debate, this was for the leadership of the Liberal Party, the moderator asked all of them, how much are groceries? How much do Canadians spend on groceries in the run of a month? None of them knew except for Karina Gould. She was the only one who knew. She's a young mother. Mark Carney had no idea. And he kind of joked, I don't buy the groceries. I don't shop for groceries. So you're probably right on the money there.
You have a millionaire that's just telling us how we feel, and then they rename it under food something. I don't know what it is. And if you think about it, it's nothing. It's an embarrassment. They just don't have a clue what to do. You know, they could take all the carbon tax off and the clean fuel tax and all the other taxes they got on the environment, and I guarantee you people would have more money at the end of the day than this garbage.
All right, Russ, I'm going to have to let you go there. Ted in Kitchener is up next. Go ahead, Ted. Hi there.
Okay. Same topic in general. I won't qualify for this little incentive, but I just wanted to, I'm a senior on a fixed income with my regular pension. I do get a CPP. I got an increase of $5 a month. Of course, after tax, that nets out to, 2/3 of that. My property taxes this year went up $400. My utilities have gone up as well. The single biggest problem we've got in Canada in terms of our affordability and living is taxation at all levels. There's absolutely no question in my mind. I've just watched my income, a disposable income, erode just every year. In the last 5 years, I'm down over 20% in terms of disposable income. I've had to cut back on all things. I am still middle class. One of the things I wanted to share is that for every increase I've had to pay in taxes, I've I've made a decision that I would cut back the equivalent amount in my charitable giving. This year, my budget is down to zero, and I'm, actually considering, well, how do I now balance things out? Because I'm starting to get worried that I'm going to have to sell assets like my house. And what we need to do in terms of affordability for Canadians, we have to start a very radical decrease in taxation by 1% to 2% a year at all levels. Cut the government equivalently by that, and in 10 years, we'll be down to 20% less taxation. We're the highest taxed population in the entire world. Rob, it's now dire.
It's dire. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that about your personal circumstance, sir.
Oh, I'm not the only one.
You are keeping with a theme. You are keeping with a theme that this is not really the right way to go, slapping new names on old tax credits that will only benefit, a few Canadians, 12 million, but not, a vast majority of the middle class certainly will not qualify for this. And what is really genuinely needed is either tax reform or broad-based tax relief. It's a very popular opinion for those that are interested in the topic today. Be right back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
All right, I think Sean in Kitchener is going to get the last word today on the Monday Talkback. Saving the best for last. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Rob. I don't know
Sean.
about the best for last, but I'd just like to touch on this. Sorry, go ahead.
Try your best, I said. What's your opinion? What do you want to touch on?
I'd just like to touch on this ICE situation and this latest shooting. There's enough videos out there, unless you have not seen the video, there's enough of them. There's two I know of for sure that clearly show the gentleman being disarmed before any shots were fired. So he never reaches for his weapon. He's doing it legally. He has his carry concealed permit. He's doing it legally as their laws state. Not once did he reach for that weapon. And as far as him attacking any ICE agents or anything, all the videos, any of the 4 or 5 that I've seen, he's protecting 2 ladies that are there being sprayed by pepper spray or whatever chemical. He gets it directly in the face prior to these agents grabbing him physically and taking him to the ground. If you listen to, the government people that are talking and Mr. Bovino or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Bovino.
They tell a completely different story. And I just don't see how people can't see by watching this video the reality of the situation and what really happened.
All right, let me just provide a counter argument that we've heard from some of our listeners. If a law enforcement person tells you back up, you back up. If the law enforcement person tells you to go away, you go away. And if he had only followed the instructions of law enforcement, maybe that guy'd be alive today. What do you think about that?
Well, from everything I've seen, watching the videos, and like I said, there's 4 or 5 that I've seen, different angles.
Everything. Yep.
He was moving away from them. At one point, he turns towards them. They spray him directly in the face. He has his telephone in his hand, and he's got a hand on one of the ladies that he was trying to get away from them. And at that point, they grabbed him and pulled him to the ground. He didn't, from everything I've seen, he did not encroach on them or go towards them in any aggressive manner whatsoever. That's my
Understood,
opinion.
sir. Yep, and you've shared it along with all of our callers today, and I thank them for doing so. Quite a start to the week. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Brand new topics, more of your calls, and always the latest breaking news coming up next on News Radio